NSA students, how are you doing? So today I'm going to show you actually how to run multiple instances on the VirtualBox manager. Now currently I know some of you are doing some projects, some of you are having a problem trying to run multiple instances, and even some of the labs that students are having problem with. Now before we continue, let me tell you that we have two setups here, Windows 8 and Windows 10, and I'm going to use Windows 8 to communicate with particularly a Linux server. Now if you look at the setting if you click on Windows 8 here, you can see the setting under networks, and you can see that it has two adapters, and I'm going to show you particularly how these two adapters are set up. Now before you start with anything, if you don't have that, what you're going to do is that you have to click on preferences and click on network and click on the host only network and click on the add button. Once you click on the add button, it will create a VirtualBox net 0, and this is where our second network will be using. So let's click cancel on that. So now let's try to install a new Linux CentOS 7 on our VirtualBox. Now click new and type the name of the for reference. I put CentOS 7 there. I am using Linux, and I'm using Linux 2.6 64-bit CentOS. I click next, and particularly CentOS or Red Hat server requires 512 megabyte virtual memory as to be used as RAM, and this is the minimum amount of requirement. So if you don't have 512, then CentOS is going to complain about it, and you have installation problems. So make sure you have a lot of RAM on your computer. Particularly, you have to create a virtual hard drive now, and I usually choose the default options, the VirtualBox disk image, and I choose a dynamically allocated one. You can use fixed size, but this is going to take up your whole space on your hard disk. Alright, so for CentOS 7, I'm gonna choose 2 gigabit. Seems that on CentOS 7, installation requires at least 1 gig, and to avoid any problems, I go a little bit above 1 gig, which is a 2 gig file size, and I create the VirtualBox manager to create this for me, and now I have a entry for CentOS 7. So what I'm going to do is click setting, and then I'm going to click network. So for the first adapter, I have a network called NAT that's attached to the operating system, to the virtual hardware. And for the second adapter, I'm going to enable this, and I'm going to choose the host only adapter, and you're going to see that by default it's going to choose the VirtualBox net 0 as an adapter name. Now what it's going to do is that it's going to on the virtual machine, it's going to create two network addresses, network cards. Now the first network is going to be used for you to connect to the internet via your host machine. So if you're using the Wi-Fi, it will try to communicate via the Wi-Fi through network address translation, or if you're using a cable internet, it will try to use the Ethernet cable. Now adapter 2 allows you to set the IP address and create your own network, and this would allow you to communicate with other machines within your virtual machine, and also other machines that outside of it. If you set it to have a particularly an IP address that is routable outside, but for now we're just gonna try with private IP addresses, such that only virtual machines can find other virtual machines. Okay? So click on OK on that, and once you click start, it will ask you for the ISO file that you are or the disk that you want to install. So after downloading the CentOS, I downloaded CentOS 7, the minimal install with the 64-bit, and I click open, and now I can start this. Now when you first boot the CentOS 7, it will ask you what you want to do. Of course, I want to install CentOS 7, and we'll try to do this really fast. It takes a while to install, and usually you'll see this fast TSC calibration fail error because particularly you're running on a virtual machine. Well, just ignore it and wait a couple of seconds, and then you'll see something going on there, and I'm just gonna abort the check. So as booting up, you can see a bunch of services being run, and the installer is going to start a GUI that you can to help you configure your CentOS machine. Now I'm just going to choose some of these default options and go ahead with that. So as you can see, we have some setting that you can set up here. I'm going to click on installation destination. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to say okay, make sure that this is a tick. This is the virtual hard disk that you create, 2 gigs, and I want to say automatically configure my partitioning. Make sure this is set up, and then click done. So after you click done, you'll see this thing warning message will go away. Okay, so and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna make sure that the particularly okay, so after you have done all this, we will not do the network first. I'm going to show you once we boot how this install. You can edit this network so that the network gets working. So but you can also see that you have 2 network cards here, and right now it's disconnected. I will remain it as disconnected later and show you how to connect it via the command line. So I'm going to click done here, and I'm going to say begin installation, and I'm going to set the root password while install. I'm going to say a simple password like put whatever password you want. Make sure you can remember the password though. I'm just going to put something really simple so that I can remember. I'm going to click done. You have a very weak password, press done again anyways. Okay, so yeah, it will warn you about creating passwords that are not secure to say, but this is just for learning, and we're running on a virtual machine. Don't do this if you're running on a production server, but this is a just for practice. So you can keep the password simple for now, but make sure you don't use simple password for real life servers. Now as for now, we won't create any users, so we're just gonna wait until the system finish installing. We'll try to install the kernel, some grub packages, and at a minimal packages that it requires. Right? You can see most of the stuff are being installed here. Let's see. Okay, so it's doing some post installation setup. I'm gonna pause this for a while. So after completing the install, you can click reboot, and you're gonna see that the system reboots. And while it's trying to reboot, you can see it looks like the boot screen, and you have a choice whether you want to run a particular rescue mode or the normal Linux. Run on the normal Linux installation. So as you click enter, it will enter the boot process, and you're gonna see the installation. So you can put root as your login and your password that you have entered. Now you're gonna be displayed on this one. Now on CentOS, it's kind of weird because you are there's let me make this larger a bit. Doesn't seem that I can make it larger. Okay, so on CentOS Linux, you can there is a command called nmcli with a switch called D that displays all your all your devices, network devices, right? And as you can see that we have two Ethernets here, as we previously discovered, but this two network is not disconnected. Now, in order to enable it and get it connected, we have to configure the network card. Now, this is done in uh, in a configuration file that exists. So we can vi/etc sysconfig and network scripts. Go to network scripts and sorry. So we're gonna continue that. Okay, so if we cd into this directory, what we're gonna see is a bunch of configuration files. Now we wanna edit one of these configuration files so that we can enable this network card to be up. So one of it is the file called ifconfig enp0s3. So let's edit that file using vi ifconfig -enp0. Okay, if you're not familiar with vi, you can use pico. Do we have pico nano? Pico nano. Well, there's not much editors you can use. Learn about vi and how to edit it, but you can edit this file using vi ifconfig enp0s3. And when we edit this, you can see that we want to keep this configuration. There's a template for this configuration, but if you look at on boot, it will say no. So let's try to edit this. What you want to do is press I on vi, and we'll have the insert mode where you can delete the no, and put yes here, right? And press escape colon write and quit, like wq, right? This is the command for vi, and when you press enter, the file is going to be written. And now what we're going to do is we want to restart this network. So a really nice feature to do is particularly on CentOS systems, we can reboot system by using the systemctl command and ask it to restart the network. So this command actually restarts the network. So if you look at this now, you should have some kind of internet. So let's try to ping google.com, and you can see that now you have some kind of response here. And nmcli network manager command line interface, D for the device would show you that Ethernet ENP0S3 is currently connected. So this is a nice thing. Now our next feature is to configure the second Ethernet card. So okay, so before we want to do that, we want to find some information about our IP address. Now usually we would use ifconfig for that, but as you notice, there's no ifconfig that can be done. So particularly we need to install a package that is currently not installed. Now in previous CentOS 6, this comes default, but as for CentOS 7, this does not come default in the minimal install, so you have to install it by using yum. Yum is a package manager, so I'm going to use yum install nettools, and we're going to look through the mirror and find this network tools that I require. And it's going to run this installation, and it's just going to take a while, so let it run until you see a prompt whether you want to install it or not. So I'm gonna pause for a while until we reach to that point. So when you're done, when Yam has done all the downloading of the packages that it needs, what you're gonna see is that it's gonna tell you that it's gonna install a certain number of size and the number of files that's being downloaded. And what you need to say is put at the prompt there, is this okay? You say yes, what as for why, and it's gonna install this package, and it's gonna also get some kind of public key for to make sure that the file is a valid file. Click yes again, and it installs the net tool so easily. So now when you issue ipconfig, you're gonna ifconfig, you're gonna see some information being listed out, and this information, let's see, click more here. You can see that for ENP0S3, there's an IP address of 10.0.2.15 that it gets automatically. Right, this is your net address. Now if you look at ENP0S8, this is they have no IP addresses or whatsoever. This is because currently the network is disconnected. So we're gonna fix that. Right, particularly we're gonna go back to etc sysconfig network scripts, ifconfig file dash enp0s8. This is what we're gonna edit. Right? Sorry, this file doesn't exist. Let's quit. Sorry, I must make a failure. Oh, okay, so that's mine. So ifconfig, this is the correct file. Alright, so and I'm gonna do some kind of additions here. So first of all, I press I here to insert. First of all, I'm gonna say yes to this because I want it to boot automatically, and I don't want to use a DHCP network, so I'm gonna use a static network. And this make sure that I can set up certain features here. Now after googling some kind of about how to set up networks, now you can Google and you find a lot of information about how to do this, but let's look at this. So first you have to make sure that your boot protocol is static. So this is a static network, not a DHCP network, and you want it to boot as it automatically starts. And I have some features here that I want to add: IP addresses, net mask, gateway, and DNS. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and what I'm going to have is I'm going to have IP address as my own private network 192.168.56.103. So remember that in the slides that I shared with you about how to share multiple instances of the network, we can create private networks on a particular machine, and I have set up for it to use the IP address of 192.168.56.103, and I'm going to set the net mask to use a class C network of 255.255.255.0, a gateway of 192.168.56.1. so every machine would use this IP address. Now when you set up the network on a virtual machine for host bridge, it literally creates 192.168.56.1 as your gateway, so you can communicate using this gateway. I won't set any DNS. Okay, so for DNS, well, I won't be setting up any DNS because I don't expect it to. Right now, I don't have a DNS server in the private network that I want it to look for. So okay, so I'm gonna press escape and right and quit because I'm done editing this configuration file. I click enter, and again I'm gonna reboot the network. So I'm gonna use system control network restart the network. So now it's starting the network. So now if I put if config, I'm gonna see that there is an IP address called 192.168.56.103 for this ENP0S8 interface card Ethernet, and with the current network being set. So if we click at your Oracle machine now, I'm going to try Windows 8 and see whether we can communicate with that. I'm going to start Windows 8. Remember, I have set up Windows 8 to also have two virtual network cards, right? Okay, so I'm going to start this machine. Let me get the password. Alright, so I'm logged in. So I'm gonna run some application here. First of all, I want to run command, and this is gonna be prompt. Now instead of if config in Windows, we call it IP config. And if you click IP config, you can see that particularly we have two networks, Ethernet 2 and Ethernet 0. Let's see how this looks like actually. We'll try to configure the network here. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna try to configure the network here. I'm familiar with this. Okay, open network connection sharing. I'm going to click on Ethernet. So in Ethernet, we see the details here, or we can see the IP address, default gateway, yada yada, user IP address of 10.0.2.15. Now this comes by default. If you click on properties and you click on the TCP/IP version 4 properties, you can see that we obtain the IP automatically and obtain the DNS server address automatically. So this is you shouldn't need to do anything with Ethernet 0. But Ethernet 2, you click on properties and you click on TCP/IP, click on properties. Now you can set the IP here for 192.168.56.100. Remember, each machine has to have a unique IP address. So if you want Windows to communicate with Linux, and Linux has 103 IP address, this machine would have 100. So other machines should be 104, 105, depending on what you want to give it. Subnet would be similar to the other machines in the network, in the class C networks, but they would share the same gateway, 192.168.56.1. Alright, so once you're done with that, click OK, and I've set this up, so I'll just click cancel. So now you can particularly ping the other machine on the network. So we have a Linux instance running right here, right? And we're gonna try to say 192.168.56.103, and you can see now that we can ping this other machine IP address. Let's see what other services are running. So let's see in the Linux machine right here, let's see if we have SSH running. So if we run ifconfig, if we run system control status of SSH. Oh, sorry, that doesn't do this. Let me find the. Well, looks like we don't have. Okay. Okay. If we look at system control status SSHT, it will show that the server is open and listening. So let's try to see if we can actually SSH to this server. I'm wondering if I have a SSH server here. Doesn't look like I have a SSH client. Well, let's see if we can communicate with it to 192.168.103 using port 22. Oh, no telnet either. So okay, this is a problem because I don't have any SSH client on this machine, so I'm gonna try to see what do I have SSH. No SSH, so this is bad. Okay, so never mind, this is a bad example, but okay, so let's try to install Apache 2 on this machine. So what I'm gonna do, yum install Apache 2, and there's no Apache 2, yum install Apache, no Apache, yum install http. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like I can install a httpd server here and see how that goes. I'm gonna say yes, and this installs the Apache server or a httpd server. So it looks like httpd is installed. Now I'm gonna see control if httpd is what's the status for httpd. It's currently loaded. The Apache server is loaded but inactive, so I'm gonna ask it to start right now, and I'm gonna see the status again, and looks like it's up, started the Apache server. Okay, so let's see if our other machines here can communicate with it. I'm gonna open up a browser. Let's see if I can do 192.168.56.103. Let's see. Something wrong with this. Let me try. IE 9168.56.103. Connection timeout. Now that is a problem because this should be it should allow me to access the other machine. So particularly earlier I have a firewall running, so in order to delete all the firewalls on the server machine, I have to use the flush command that flushes all the IP tables or firewall rules. Now if you put 192.168.56.103 right here, you're gonna see that now the web server is responding to this IP address 103 192.168.56.103. Now this is a good example of accessing two virtual machines together. Now we have talked about previously on firewall issues and how to set up firewalls. Now we can somehow see how these files get blocked. Suppose we want to block particularly and this allow everything, right? So we can say in this case, if we look at this, okay, so that's the server. So we can make sure that no packet goes through into the incoming channel of the network. So all I have to do is IP tables dash a input dash p TCP port the TCP flags all. So I'm gonna drop everything. Let's see, if I want to drop everything, I can say drop all packages. Let's see, how do I do that? Okay. So this is more of a advanced feature. If I want to have a policy that drops everything, let's see. Alright, so I'm gonna have input dash a input dash j drop. Right, so I want to drop everything particularly, and if I put that for my IP tables, and you can see in this on the Windows machine, and I put this IP address again, and it should not be running. Let's see, so it's trying to run and it get this page not found. But if I put IP tables and flush the table again, you can see that now I can access the server. So okay, so this is a good example. There will be some firewall labs that I will try to set up for you this week for you to play around with. Maybe you can try to show your TA before the class ends. We'll see how it goes. I know time's tight with all the requirements and me being offline busy sometimes, so we'll try to do our best with what we have this semester. I wish you all the best and hope you learned something valuable today.